That's one of the funny things about life people. We'll forget a lot of the things you've said and done, but they never seem to forget. The way you carried yourself, they don't always remember what you built, but they remember the way you livad. And that's an important lesson because it means legacy is not about the things you collected. It's about the person you became. I've met people who worked their whole life to pile up achivements, but years later, no one talks about the titles, the promotions, or the trophies. What do people remember? They remember if that person was kind, if they were honest, if they treated people with respect. They remember the laughter they brought to the room, or the steadiness they carried in a crisis. And here's the point: how you live outlasts what you do. Now don't get me wrong, achivements are important. Setting goals, reaching them, creating success, that matters. But life is bigger than the resume, because your resume stays behind when you retire. But your reputation walks into every room before you do. People quote your business numbers, but they'll repeat your words if those words carried life. They won't list your net worth, but they'll tell stories about your character. What lasts is not the ledger, it's the life. I learned this when I began to reflect on the people who influenced me most. It wasn't always the ONES with the biggest ACCOMPLISHMENTS, it was the ONES who LIVED in a way that left an impression, the ONES who were consistent, the ONES who kept their word, the ONES who showed courage when it was easier to quit. That's what stuck with me, not the job titles they held, not the awards on their shelf, but the way they lived day to day. And if you think about your own life, you'll probably realize the same. Who do you respect most? It's not necessarily the wealthiest, the most talented, or the most powerful. It's the people who lived in a way you admired. Maybe they lived with generosity. Maybe they lived with discipline. Maybe they lived with joy. Whatever it was, their life itself became the lesson. That's why we need to be careful, because it's tempting to chase recognition, to chase status, to chase applause. But recognition, FADES status, is temporary. Applause dies down. What doesn't fade is the memory of how you lived. Did you live selfishly or generously? Did you live shallow or deep? Did you live casually or with intention? Did you live just for yourself, or did you lift others? As you climb, those are the questions that define legacy. Here's the challenge: don't get so caught up in building a resume that you forget to build a life. Don't just chase achivements, chase character. Don't just aim to be rememberd for what you did. Aim to be rememberd for how you lived, because in the end that's what people carry with them. Not the details of your work, but the spirit of your life. So that's what I want to talk about today. Why people forget what you did but remember how you lived, and more importantly, how to live in such a way that your influence outlasts your years and your example outlives your name. And I want to start with a simple observation: most of what we do doesn't last very long. You can work 4 years on a project, and 5 years after you're gone, someone new has changed it, rebuilt it, or replaced you can hold a position for decades. And the day you retire, someone else sits in your chair and carries on as if you were never there. That's the way of the world. What we do gets absorbed, altered, forgotten. But how you lived, that lingers, because people don't carry home your job description. They carry home their experience of you. They don't talk at the dinner table about how many meetings you attended, but they might mention how you treated the waitress at lunch. They don't brag to their children about the size of your office, but they might repeat your words if they carried wisdom. See the world FORGTS, your titles, but it REMEMBRS, your example. Think about it. Can you list the NAMES of every president, every CEO, every celebrity of the last 100 years? Probably not. Most of us can't, but you can remember a teacher who ENCOURAGDU, a neighbor who looked out for you, a friend who stood by you when times were rough. Their NAMES are etched in your memory, not because of what they did on paper, but because of how they lived in your presence. That's influence, and influence OUTLASTS achievement. Now, I'm not saying achievement is meaningless, far from it. ACHIVMNTS, open doors. Create OPPORTUNITIES and prove what's possible, but they're not the whole story. Because if you pile up achievement without character, people may respect your RESULTS, but they won't respect your life, and in the end, respect for your life matters more than applause for your RESULTS. I once knew a man who had achieved great success in business, wealth, recognition, influence, but after he passed, INOTICED, something at his memorial, very few people talked about his deals or his PROFITS. Instead, they talked about his laughter, his generosity, his ability to make people feel valued. His ACHIVMNTS were impressive, but what people REMEMBERED was his life. That's the lesson. Your legacy is written more in people's HEARTS than in the record books. So how do you build that kind of legacy? By living with intention every day. By making sure that the way you live RFLECTS the values you want REMEMBERED. Because you can't fake it. People see through pretense. They know if you're only kind when it BNEFITS you. They know if you're only honest when it's convenient. True steadiness of character shows up in the ordinary MOMENTS. That's where people notice. That's what stays with them. Ask yourself, if someone followed me around for a week, what would they say about the way I lived? Would they say I was patient? Would they say I was disciplined? Would they say I cared about others? Or would they say I was rushed, distracted, self-centered? You don't get to decide what they remember. You only get to decide how you live. And how you live writes the memory. That's why I say, don't just build a career. Build a character. Don't just make a living, make a difference. Don't just climb the ladder. Ask yourself who you're becoming on the way up, because one day the ladder will be gone, but the memory of how you climbed will remain. I want you to think for a moment about the people who shaped you. Most maybe it was a parent, a teacher, a coach, a friend. Now ask yourself, do you remember their ACCOMPLISHMENTS? Or do you remember their attitude, their presence, their way of living? Chances are you remember their spirit more than their resume. That's the power of example. Example OUTLIVES performance. One of the great TRAGEDIES is that people spend so much of their energy trying to impress, when what truly INFLUENCES others is how they behave. In the quiet MOMENTS, you can impress someone from a stage, but you influence them at the dinner table. You can't impress them with a speech, but you influence them with how you live. When no one's applauding, and people never forget influence. Let me put it this way. History BOOKS may record what you did, but human HEARTS record how you lived. A century from now few will know your name. But the HABITS you pass down, the kindness you show, the integrity you lived, that will echo in WAYS. You may never see. That's why the focus should not just be on what you can achieve, but on what kind of person you're becoming. While you achieve it, picture this. Suppose you had walls lined with awards, plaques, and certificates. COMMITES had praised you, ORGNIZATIONS had recognized you, and your ACHIVMNTS shined for all to see. Now imagine the moment of your funeral. Who would you truly want speaking the COMMITTES that handed you those plaques? Or the family that lived with you every day? The COMMITTES might honor what you did, but your family would testify to how you lived. And in the end, that testimony would matter most, and that's the test. If everything you built disappeared tomorrow, your job, your money, your possessions, what would people still say about you? Would they say you were generous? Would they say you were dependable? Would they say you kept your word? Because if they can say those things, you're rich in the ways that last. If they can't, then no amount of success can cover for the lack of character. I mean, think about your daily life, the way you handle small things, BCOMES, your reputation. Did you show up on time? Did you follow through on your PROMISES? Did you treat people with respect? Even when they couldn't give you anything in return, those DTILS don't make HEADLINES. But they shape MEMORIS, and MEMORIS are what people carry long after the DTILS of your ACHIVMNTS have faded. And listen, I want to tell you something important. People don't talk much about what you earned, but they'll talk for years about what you gave. They don't replay the exact words of your PRSNTAT1S, but they'll remember the encouragement you offered when they needed it. They recall how busy you were, but they'll never forget if you made them feel important. That's how you live a life that OUTLASTSU. So here's the principle: don't just strive to be successful, strive to be significant. Success is about what you do for yourself. Significance is about what your life means to others. And significance is REMEMBRED, far longer than success. People forget what you did, but they remember how you lived. Because how you lived is what touched them most. It's amazing how quickly the DETILS of a person's ACCOMPLISHMNTS fade. You can look at an old yearbook, a company record, or a community newsletter and see NAMES that were once in the spotlight at the time they were celebrated. But years later, only a few remember what they did. What lasts, what sticks, is the impression of their life. Were they kind? Were THEY dependable? Did they live with dignity? That's what stays alive in memory. I remember talking with a woman. After her father passed away, I asked her what she REMEMBRED most. She didn't mention his career. THOUGH he had been successful. She didn't talk about the car he drove or the house he lived in. What she REMEMBRED most was that every morning he sat at the breakfast table, asked her about her day, and actually LISTNED. That small habit shaped her view of what it meant to care. It wasn't his title, she REMEMBRED. It was his attention. That's the lesson: the ordinary ways you live day to day become the extraordinary MEMORIS for others. Now here's the key: most people want to be REMEMBRED for something big. They want others to say he was the best in his field or she changed the world. But the truth is, for most people, the MEMORIS that last are built in the small things. The consistent way you showed up, the patience you practiced when others were impatient, the laughter you brought into the room, the trust people could place in your word. Those are the things that build the fabric of how you're REMEMBRED. And here's what's remarkable: living well doesn't require wealth or status. You don't need to be famous, you don't need to be powerful, you just need to be intentional. Some of the most influential people in MY life never stood on a stage, never held a title, never earned a fortune, but the way they lived, their consistency, their kindness, their steadiness made an impact that's still alive in me today. On the other hand, I've seen the opposite. I've known people with great ACHIVMNTS who lived in a way that damaged their legacy. Their ACCOMPLISHMNTS were real, but their life was marked by arrogance, dishonesty, or neglect. And years later, That's what people remembered. They didn't say he was brilliant, they said he couldn't be trusted. Your character writes the story people tell about you. And no achievement can erase it. And here's the key, don't wait until later. To start living the life you want, remembered, start now, because people are watching. Now your children are watching, now your co-workers, your friends, your neighbors. They're watching the way you live. And the habits you practice today are already becoming the memories of tomorrow. So remember, people may forget the details of what you did, they may not recall the dates, the numbers, the trophies, but they will never forget how you lived, because that's what touched their life most deeply. That's the legacy worth building. One of the keys to living in a way that's remembered is consistency. Anyone can have a good day. Anyone can do the right thing once, but people don't remember isolated moments nearly as much as they remember patterns. If you were kind once but harsh most of the time, they'll remember the harshness. If you were honest occasionally but cut corners often, they'll remember the shortcuts. But if you lived with consistency, that BCMES, your reputation, and reputation lives longer than recognition. Think about trust. Trust isn't built in a single act, it's built day after day, choice after choice. And once people know they can count on you, that steadiness BCOMES, the story they tell about you. They may forget the deals you closed or the SPACHES you gave, but they'll remember that they could always rely on you, that you always kept your word. That kind of memory, outlasts every achievement on paper. Here's another one, attitude. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you always control how you respond, and people watch your responses closely. Were you bitter in difficulty? Or were you steady? Did you collapse under pressure? Or did you carry yourself with dignity years later? That's what people will remember. They'll say they watched you walk through a storm and you never lost your grace. That memory, INSPIRES. Long after the details of the storm are forgotten. And here's one that's easy to miss. So make sure you don't generosity, not just generosity with money. THOGH, that matters, but generosity with time, with attention, with encouragement. Most people don't remember technical details of what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel when they were discouraged or how you showed up when they needed someone. A generous spirit leaves a mark that no one erases. You don't need a large bank account to leave that kind of EGACY, just a large heart. Now here's something worth noting. The way you live in private eventually shows up in public. If your private life is careless, your public life will crack. But if your private life is disciplined, your public life will carry weight, and people remember the weight of your life far more than the image you try to project. A polished performance FADES, but integrity shines long after. And the truth is, MISTAKES, don't disqualify you. Everyone MAKES, them people don't expect perfection. They expect honesty. If you stumble but own it, if you fail but get back up, if you hurt someone but make it right, that BCOMES part of your story. And often those MOMENTS are REMEMBRED, most because people aren't inspired by perfection. They're inspired by redemption. How you lived through failure says more than the failure itself. So what does this mean for us? It means every day is a chance to add to the story. People will tell every decision, every conversation, every habit. You're writing your legacy not someday, but now. The question is not what will I leave behind later. The question is, what am I leaving behind today in the lives of the people I touch? And that's why I say don't worry if people forget the specifics of what you did. But they will remember the consistency of your character, the steadiness of your attitude, the generosity of your spirit. Those things carve themselves into memory, and when your name is spoken years from now, it won't be your resume they mention, it will be your life. But here's the thing, how you live doesn't just affect your own circle. It ripples out, it touches your family, your community, and sometimes people you'll never even meet. You don't have to be famous to leave an impact. You just have to live in a way that matters. And that's why this principle is so important. People forget what you did, but they remember how you lived. Because how you lived shaped the atmosphere wherever you went. Think about family first. Children rarely remember all the things their parents did. In terms of tasks and chores, but they remember the environment. They remember if the house felt safe or tense. They remember if their parents were present or distracted. They remember if love was spoken and shown years later. They may not recall the long hours you worked, but they'll never forget if you were there when it counted. That's the mark of how you lived. Think about your friends. Friends may forget the exact favors you did, but they'll always remember if you were loyal. They'll forget the details of every conversation, but they'll remember if you were a listener, if you cared enough to pay attention. Your lifestyle, faithful, dependable, compassionate. BCMS, the memory that sticks long after the specific events have faded. In business, the same principle applies. Colleagues will forget half the projects you worked on. They'll forget the numbers and the charts, but they forget how you handled pressure, how you treated people, how you carried yourself in the meetings when things were tough. A good example is worth more than a long list of ACCOMPLISHMENTS. It's the story that GETS told about you when you're not in the room. Even strangers can feel it, a single act of kindness, a steady word, a moment of generosity. It might not seem like much to you, but it may be remembered by someone for the rest of their life. And you may never even know. That's why you have to be mindful of how you live. Everywhere, not just where it's convenient. You're writing impressions in people's memory every day. I'm telling you, this stuff is so powerful. How you live BCOMES culture. FAMLIS build TRADUNS around the way one person chose to live. COMMUNITIS are shaped by leaders who set an example of honesty, courage, or sacrifice. Whole generations are INFLUNCD. Not just by what someone accomplished, but by how they carried themselves through life. Think of the people we still talk about, DECADES. After they're gone, it's usually not their specific deeds we rehearse, but their spirit, their courage, their generosity, their way of living. Here's the truth: what you do can make you successful, but how you live, MAKES, you significant, and significance lasts longer than success. Significance doesn't fade with the memory of ACHIVMENTS. It's CARRIES, on in the way people live. Because of the way you lived. That's the difference between LEAVING behind a resume and LEAVING behind a legacy. So here's the question I have for you today. What atmosphere are you creating? What culture will remain because of the way you lived? That's important. Will your children say you lived with patience? Will your co-workers say you lived with integrity? Will your friends say you lived with loyalty? Because those are the things that stay alive long after the applause. FADES, people forget what you did, but they never forget how you lived. Because how you lived is what touched their life. There comes a point when you realize that life is not about the size of your ACHIVMENTS, but about the size of your example, because people are watching, always watching, and whether you know it or not, Your daily choices are teaching their SHAPING how others think, how others behave, how others live. That's why it's so important to remember. What you do may be forgotten, but how you live BCOMES, someone else's pattern. And I mean, let's be honest, most of us have statues built in OUR honor, or our NAMES written in the history books, but every one of us leaves behind a trail of influence. The question is, what kind will people walk in your FOOTSTPS? Because you LIVED with honesty, discipline, and kindness, or will they avoid your path? Because you LIVED carelessly, selfishly, or dishonorably. You decide that every day, not with grand GESTURES, but with the way you live when no one's keeping score. Now here's something that struck me years ago. People admire success, but they imitate character. You can impress someone with your ACHIVMENTS, but if your life is shallow, they won't follow your example. On the other hand, if your ACHIVMENTS are modest but your life is strong, they'll remember you, they'll quote you, they'll shape their behavior after yours. That's why your influence doesn't depend on the size of your success. It depends on the quality of your life. And let me add this: how you live when it all goes bad. SBAKS louder than how you live when life is TRATNG. You nice, everyone can smile when things are easy. Everyone can be generous when they have plenty. Everyone can be calm when there is no pressure. But people really remember how you LIVED when things were hard. Did you stay steady when others panicked? Did you stay generous when RESOURCES were scarce? Did you stay true when SHORTCUTS were tempting? Those are the MOMENTS that carve your life into memory. See discipline WEIGHS, OUNCES, but regret WEIGHS, tons. The same is true here. Living with integrity day by day may feel like a small weight, but the reward is light. You'll be REMMBRD well. Living carelessly may feel easy in the moment, but the regret is heavy because the memory you leave behind will not be one you're proud of. And once you're gone, you don't get to rewrite it. People will remember you for how you LIVED. And that record is final. So let's treat life like what it is: a chance to create a legacy worth talking about. Let's be intentional about our example. Let's live in such a way that when our name comes up in conversation, people smile. They are left with thoughts of joy. Ideas they inspire them, PRINCIPLES, that guide them. That's not just reputation. That's immortality and influence. Live each day as if it's being written into someone else's memory. Because it is a child, a colleague, a friend, even a stranger. Someone is taking note of how you live. And long after the titles and ACHIVMENTS fade, their memory of your life will still be SHAPING them. So live carefully, live intentionally, live generously, because that's the part that lasts. The real question of life is not what you accomplish. The real question is how you LIVED. Did you live with honesty and kindness? What about steadiness, discipline, courage? Because those are the things that will echo long after your voice is silent. That's the legacy you carry, not in records or plaques, but in people. And you don't have to like it, but it is the truth, and it's not going to change. But you can change. You don't have to wait for later to start SHAPING that legacy. You're already SHAPING it today, tonight, in the choices you make. Every conversation adds to it. Every decision builds it. Every day is another line in the story. People will tell about you, and the story tell won't be about what you did. It'll be about how you LIVED while you were doing it. So stop worrying so much about recognition, applause, or HEADLINES. Those things fade. Instead, live in a way that matters. Live with consistency so people can trust you. Live with generosity so people are lifted by you. Live with patience so people find calm in your presence. Live with integrity, so people know your word is good, because that's the life that outlasts. That's the life that people carry in their memory. And you don't have to be perfect, because you're not, I'm not. And neither of us ever will be, but we can be consistent. We can decide day after day to live in a way we'll be proud to be. REMEMBRED. If we stumble, we correct it. If we fail, we get back up. If we fall short, we try again. Because even in those moments, people are watching. And sometimes what they'll remember most is not that we never failed, but that we never gave up. So here's my final word. Don't just aim to do great things, aim to live a great life. Because one day people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you lived. And how you lived, that's the true measure of a life well spent.